Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd do our seventh, or is it our eighth? I think it's our seventh, but I'll correct it down here. Uh, mixed sale haul. All right. I went to four different places, two private places, a Walmart, and a not a thrift store, but a pawn shop. So I picked up four LPs at a private sale. I picked up um, two Blu-rays at another private sale, including a Steelbook Blu-ray, and I picked up five Blu-rays at the pawn shop that I went to, and then I picked up two purchases at Walmart. So I thought we'd go through them. Should be fun, and see what you think. Leave the comments below if you like any of the stuff that I have, and what should we do first? I think we should do the Walmart stuff first. All right. So I picked up two purchases at Walmart. All right. The first one I picked up for $10, and that's the Eddie Murphy Eddie Murphy 14 film collection. All right, um, and they didn't do it cheaply. They're all DVDs, of course. If you don't collect DVDs, this probably has no interest in you. But for me, this is great. This is how thick it is, and I have most of these films in my collection. Um, and the ones that aren't in the directors, I'll probably end up taking out of my collection, and then I'll just have this in the M section of my movie library by title in the M section, right? So it's 14 movies that Eddie Murphy starred in. All right. Like I said, put out on DVD. There's 14 discs, so they're not doubling up on the discs or doing, double-sided discs to put these movies out. There's actually 14 discs in here, so that's good as well. And for only like $10 for that, that's an amazing price. At least I think it is. And they're all put out by Paramount. All right, so Paramount put this out, and I haven't even opened it yet. I just brought it home yesterday, so it should help me with my spacing uh, on my shelves, give me up more space. So uh, just to list which movies they are. All right, we have 48 Hours, another 48 Hours, so that um, double film. Best Defense, Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, and 3. So you have that trilogy. Boomerang, Coming to America, Dreamgirls, The Golden Child, Harlem Nights, Norbit, Trading Places, and A Vampire in Brooklyn. So I should be able to take some of these films off my shelf and have them in this collection instead. I'm not really usually a big fan of um, box sets that involve uh, actors, right? Because it. All right, let me explain why. Okay, I mean, if you're a big collector, you probably already know why. But if you're not, maybe you're new to collecting films. But okay, so there's a bunch of ways that films come. Most of them come in individual packages, right? Where you have one film. All right, um, which are the easiest to collect. The way that I separate my collection is I collect certain directors and I put the directors all in one section of my library. So I'm not doing my whole library by title, like alphabetical order by title. I'm actually, uh, about half of my library is just directors because I like to go, I'll have a certain, want. Maybe I want to watch a Steven Spielberg film. Maybe I want to watch a Quentin Tarantino film. So I have a choice. I don't have to look through my whole library to try to find, uh, a certain director's film. Maybe I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, I'm kind of in a Spielberg mood, but I'm not sure which movie I want to watch. So I'll go into my Spielberg section of the directors, and I'll look through his filmography that I have and go, oh, okay, maybe I'll watch Jaws. All right, and I'll grab the Jaws. All right, so um, that's what I enjoy doing, and I like to have all the directors' films in directors, right, of the directors that I collect. But I usually collect movie by directors. Once I enjoy a director, I'll try to get all of his films and watch all of his filmography. That's just the way I watch movies. But there are movies that I quite enjoy by directors that there are other movies as I watch other movies I didn't really care for their other movies. So I just stopped watching that director. And I'd only have maybe one film by that director. So those would go in alphabetical order in another section of my library, um, by title, alphabetical order by title. All right. So um, that's why I don't like actor-driven box sets, right? So the reason why is many movies are you're going to want to have in your director's section collection, right? Because they're good movies by that director, and many of the movies you're going to want alphabetical order by title because that's where you're going to find them, right? So, for example, Beverly Hills Cop. I don't think I collect the director for Beverly Hills Cop. I'm not sure who. I don't recall who did Beverly Hills Cop. Do you guys remember who did Beverly Hills Cop? Widescreen, da 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 da. Yeah, it doesn't really tell on the back of the thing. Anyway, um, so Beverly Hills Cop, I would put in the B section of my film by title in alphabetical order, right? So if I want to watch Beverly Hills Cop, then I'll go to Beverly Hills Cop, and then it won't be there, because it's in the Eddie Murphy section. So I got to remember the M section for Eddie Murphy. So I'm going to go up, and I think it's in, let's say, the B section for Beverly Hills Cop. It's not there, and I'm going, okay, now I'm going to look on the IMDb or wherever, find who the director is. Maybe it's a director title that I collect, the director, but usually I don't forget the director's movies. Um, so it probably isn't, but I'll look it up to see who it is. And then I go, okay, no, I don't collect that director, so it's not there. So then where's the film? Well, where's the film? And I go, okay, okay. Ah, yeah, I remember now. I have a Murphy collection. So then I go look in the M, and there it is with a whole bunch of other Eddie Murphy films, right? So it's difficult to remember sometimes, and difficult to find certain films in your collection if you buy a box set of a certain actor, right? Okay, so especially if it's a film you're not really familiar with, maybe let's say you pick up a Humphrey Bogart collection on DVD or whatever, and because you like Casablanca, and Casablanca is one of the films in it, but then maybe African Queen is another one that's in it. So you look on your database, maybe you have an Excel spreadsheet, or maybe you do it online. You go, do I have African Queen? I want to watch that because somebody mentioned it, in a review that you were reading on something else or whatever. You go, African Queen, I want to watch that, right? So you go, okay, you look at your database and you have that movie. So then you go, okay, so you go to the A section of your collection and you look for African Queen. It's not there. You go, okay, who directed it? So then you look up oh yeah, I collect that director. So then you go to that section of your library where that director is, and it's not there either. And you go, okay, then where the hell is it? Where am I looking? And then finally you go, okay, well, Humphrey Bogart in it. Do I have any Humphrey Bogart box sets? And then you go look in the B section, and there's Humphrey Bogart. Then you look at a box set and you go, there's the film. All right. And then you pull that box set out, right? So it makes it difficult to find certain films. And sometimes your films will get lost, especially if it's like a second added film by a director or something. Like the Criterion Collection enjoys giving you the main movie but then maybe they'll give us some other movies by that director as added bonuses. So you add those to your database, and then you just can't find the friggin' thing because it's in the Criterion Collection, and unless you know what Criterion Collection that film is in by which director and everything, it's basically lost. You only come across it if you go into the Criterion Collection of your library and pick out a film and go, oh, that's where that film is, right? So some films do get lost, even though you're being diligent and you're curating your library well or whatever, right? So anyway, so I'm not usually a big fan of this kind of thing because if I want to find, let's say, Vampire in Brooklyn, I may look at B, depending on who the director is, right? Or Trading Places, maybe I'll be looking. I think Trading Places was done by, like, anyways. You understand what I'm saying? Um, it's not going to be where the film title is, and it's not going to be where the director is. It's going to be in M for Eddie Murphy. And I don't sort my film. Some people do sort their films by actor, right? Maybe they'll have every Eddie Murphy film and they'll put it in M for Eddie Murphy, right? Um, the problem with doing that is, let's say you like Trading Places, And so you put that Eddie Murphy film in with Eddie Murphy, but Dan Aykroyd is in that film as well, and maybe you're a fan of Dan Aykroyd. So what do? Where are you going to put it? You're going to put it in the Murphy, or are you going to put it in the Aykroyd, right? And then you're going to look for it in two different places when you want to go watch it. So a lot of people who decide that they're going to um, do their sorting by actor kind of abandon that after a while because they realize that what are you going to do with a film that has Arnold Schwarzenegger in it and Sylvester Stallone? Are you going to put it in Sylvester Stallone? You're going to put it in Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So, or people don't abandon and say, no, I want to do it this way, so I'm going to do it this way. And then they buy two copies and they have uh, one in their Schwarzenegger section and one in their, Stallone section, right? But then what do you do with a film that, let's say, doesn't star Stallone, but Stallone directed it, right? A lot of Clint Eastwood films are that way, where you'll have Clint Eastwood starring in it and directing it, and then others he only stars in, but it's directed by, let's say, Don Siegel, right, or other directors, and then there's some films that he directs but he doesn't star in, right? So, um, what do you do with those kind of things, right? So, it's easiest. I mean, if you want it to do it like totally simply, so you'll never forget where almost 99% of your films are, then you'll never buy a box set of a director. You'll never buy a box set of an actor. You only buy individual films, and you'll sort them all in alphabetical order by title, right? So, and then you'll know where everything is. But I don't really like doing that way. I like not having to go running around my whole library to find a Tarantino film when I can just go to the Tarantino section and pull out a film by Tarantino, right? Anyway, so that's the first. So I got this one for $10, 14 films on 14 discs on DVD for $10 from Walmart. That's great. All right. So the second thing I picked up at Walmart was also this craze with the everybody's enjoying the new Top Gun film. So I guess because of that, Walmart has Top Gun on Blu-ray in their stores in Canada for like $6. So I said, "Cool, I have this on DVD, but I don't have it on Blu-ray yet." So I picked it up on Blu-ray, and I got a digital copy as well. So although I'm not really big on digital copies. And if you haven't seen this film, it's one of Cruise's better films, and it's directed by Tony Scott, who is a director that I collect. So bonus, right? I get a new copy of uh, Top Gun starring Tom Cruise, and I can put it in my Tony Scott collection. What I'll probably do is I'll open it and I'll take, because I have Tony Scott's over there, by the way. That's why I'm looking that way. Um, I have that on DVD already, so now I can upgrade to Blu-ray. And what I'll do is I'll just put the two discs in a two tray Blu-ray case. I'll put the DVD in it and the Blu-ray in it, and then I'll have the Blu-ray and the DVD. Because if you watch previous videos of mine, I still collect DVDs because I like to transfer them on my laptop and watch them on my laptop. And I don't really need a Blu-ray quality or a 4K quality um, visual experience on a 15.6-inch screen, right? So anyway, so I use the DVDs because they're quicker to transfer and they take up less space on a hard drive, right? So anyway, so I collect the DVDs. So now I can put that with the DVD and have only this here and not the thicker DVD case, right? And still have it on Blu-ray and DVD. All right. So next up, all right. So those are the two items that I got from Walmart. New. Next up is I'll do the 5 films Blu-rays that I got off uh, when I went to a pawn shop the other day. I was going to change my tires to winter tires on my car, and there's a pawn shop nearby. So I drop my car off and then I go to the pawn shop and look over, and I found 5 films. All right. So the first film I found was one of the great films from the 90s. I don't know, maybe the greatest? No, probably Pulp Fiction was the greatest of this sort. All right. Anyways, it's True Romance. All right. Another Tony Scott film. All right. So I picked up 2 Tony Scott films today, or sorry, in my travel since my last video. This is written by Quentin Tarantino, his first script that ever got on film, I think. I could be wrong on that, but first main, and you could tell it's a Tarantino um, written script because of the way you know Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette talk. Right, it's got that that signature Tarantino kind of talk, and basically it's a crime film. Basically, he and her, she's a hooker, and he, what does he do in this film? A gambler? I think he's a gambler. Anyway, so they end up um, getting married after they do a heist of the mob's cocaine and then go on the run and everything. And, it's one of those Tarantino films where, anyways, it's quite fun. I haven't seen it in probably 10 years, but now that I have it on a Blu-ray, maybe I'll watch it again, see how the Blu-ray is. And uh, so I have the two disc special edition on DVD. So I'll probably pull this out and combine it with this one into this package, and then I'll, instead of having that size space, I only have this size space. The problem is that I'll buy the two tray um, Blu-ray cases new off Amazon. You can usually get them for under $1 each. If you buy like 100 of them, right? Um, and usually this will have one disc, and this will have one disc, and then I can just take the two discs out, take the sleeve to the Blu-ray out, and put it into the two disc Blu-ray case, right? And then have just the Blu-ray, all right? So, but when this has two discs, it makes a disc loose. So I need to, buy or find, if I want to combine them, I need to buy or find a three tray Blu-ray um, case, right? And those aren't cheap. All right, you're gonna pay like $5 or $6 for one of them, right? So it's not like they're under $1 each and affordable when you get a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 disc Blu-ray case, empty Blu-ray case. You're multiple dollars, like $5, $6, $10, right? So it's not really worth it. So what I do is I don't really care. All right, what I'll do is I'll put the movie and the Blu-ray movie and the DVD movie in the two discs, and then I'll put the special features disc loose in the case. I'll push it on top of one of the others in the tray, and sometimes it'll stick there. Sometimes you'll hear a loose movement in it. But um, if you're putting it you want them to be secure in it because you don't want scratches. But if there is a scratch on the extra disc that isn't the movie, I'm not a big extras guy. I like I like when they do a good treatment on a film where you'll get like a more than a 30-minute documentary, like a full full on documentary on the film, telling you its historical importance and where it is in film history and da 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 what it did at the time and all that. I enjoy those. I enjoy the commentary from the director or the writer or the producer of the film. Those are fun too. But all these little interviews that last 5 minutes or 7 minutes, all this fodder that you end up getting on Blu-rays these days or 4Ks. I have no interest in. I don't watch them. So if that's mostly what's on the extra disc, then I don't really use it anyway. So if it gets a bit scratched, don't really care, right? So um, especially if it's on a DVD, because DVDs are a dime a dozen. I can find this again, right, or something similar to this on DVD for a very reasonable price, like under $3 usually, right? So anyway, so I'll probably combine them anyways just to save some space, or maybe I'll just leave it like this if I don't have to do anything yet, because there's a space in that section where Tony Scott is. All right, so that's True Romance, one of the great '90s films. All right, next up is a David Cronenberg film. All right, and this is called A Dangerous Method. All right, and I do have the DVD as well, so I'm going to combine the two again. This one only has one. The Dangerous Method only has one disc, so it's easy to do. All right. Um, and I'll have the Blu-ray and the DVD in one container. All right. So actually, no, you know what? I don't really need to do it because this one is a Blu-ray DVD combo already. So I have the DVD and the Blu-ray in this case. I wonder what I'm going to do when I upgrade to 4K. And then I'm going to start getting films in 4K, in the future. What I do is I let other people adopt the new the new formats or whatever. Because if you're an early adopter, you're a very, very, very um, you have a good amount of money. All right. Where when 4Ks are selling for $25 each, right? Um, and you can find the Blu-ray version of the film for like three, four, maybe $5. Uh, yeah, and then having to upgrade your player to a 4K player because I have three TVs in my house. All right, and I don't want to replace all three of them with 4Ks just so I can watch 4K films somewhere in my house. I have a large TV downstairs, like a smart TV, like 65 inches or whatever, and a Blu-ray player down here in my den in the basement. And then I have one in the main living room area, and then have one in the bedroom, and each one has a Blu-ray player, which I did not buy new. I bought used for like $30 each. You know what I mean? This one's a Sony, or is it a Sony? I can't really see from here. Maybe it's Panasonic. Anyways, I have three Blu-ray players that didn't cost me any more than $30 each, and three large TVs. I don't really want to buy a 4K television and then try to buy three new, you know, 4K players, right? I don't know. If you're not satisfied with a Blu-ray on the clarity of a Blu-ray at 1080, how are you ever going to watch a DVD? They're like 420 or something, aren't they? I'm not exactly sure what the bit rate for a DVD is, right? But these are usually less than 7 gigs, where these are like 20, 25, 30, 35, up to 50 gigs, right? So these are really clear already, and the jump from this one to this one is pretty good. The jump from VHS to this one was amazing. The jump from this one to this one was pretty good, all right? But the jump from this one to a 4K, depending on how they transferred this or whatever, they could have transferred the, is it called transfer? They could have redid this in a 4K transfer, right? And then they put it on a Blu-ray. So what did they do? They reduced it or they compressed it right down to a Blu-ray. But you know, if it's done on a 4K restoration or even a 2K restoration, it is already clear. And I don't know if my eyes are worse than everybody else's or not, but when I put on a 4K, um, the jump is not all that great. All right, I mean, it is better than a Blu-ray, but the jump is only what, like four times the amount. And do you actually see that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I don't know the price between. If this is three and the 4K version of it is 25 or 30, is that jump space from 1080 up to what is 4K? 4K means 4,000, so it's somewhere around 4,000, right? So, is that jump significant enough to spend an extra $25? If you're buying it new, because you don't really find very many 4K films on the secondary market as of yet, right? Because it's a newly adopted format for many people, right? So they're not really putting them on the secondary market as of yet, right? But you can get a DVD for $1 or $2, and you can get a Blu-ray for less than $5. And the jump up from $5 to 25 or 30 new 4K, it's not. I don't think it's worth it yet. So I'll just wait, right? I'll wait until I'm going to replace my TV because it's old and it's not working properly, and then I'll get a 4K TV, and then maybe I'll get a 4K player back then because there'll be a flood of them on the market at the time, on the secondary market, and I can pick it up for $50 or less. That kind of idea, because I'm always on a budget, right? So, um, anyway, so this is Dangerous Method. I have it on Blu-ray and DVD now. This combination. This is David Cronenberg's film after he did those two Viggo Mortensen films. What were they? A History of Violence, and what was the other one? Anyways, the one where he was like a Russian mob guy, and then another one where he was hiding out from the mob, uh, owning a diner in a small town. What was that one called? Um, Something. A History of Violence, and I don't know. I can't remember the other one. They're both great films anyway, mainstream films. Well, he did this one after that, and actually Viggo Mortensen is in this one. So this one was put out in 2011, and it's basically a film about psychoanalysis and the beginnings of psychoanalysis with Freud and Carl Jung, who was like almost like a student, or Freud was a mentor to Jung in a way. Um, and then a third person who is played by Keira Knightley, and she's in the front here. So Mortensen plays Freud, and um, Michael Fassbender, who's this guy, he plays Jung. All right, and Keira Knightley, she plays Sabina Spielring. All right, who ends up being a love interest of Fassbender or of Jung. Right. Anyway, so it's all about the beginnings of psychoanalysis, uh, and there's a bunch of intrigue in it as well. So critics thought it was great. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm gonna watch that pretty soon. All right, and I'll just combine the two into one disc. All right, so I'll save a small amount of space by combining. So I don't have this one anymore. I just have this one, right? All right, so that's a dangerous method. Next up, that I was at the pawn shop. I found this film, and I got all these films. I got all these Blu-rays that I found for $4. All right, $4 each. So this is another Blu-ray DVD combo of the third film of the Bill and Ted um, films, right? So this is came out in 2020, but I like Bogus Journey more. It was fun, their interactions with the Grim Reaper or Death when they're playing all these games to go back up after they die, right? It's quite funny. Anyway, so this one I saw in theaters. Uh, I thought it was okay, but it doesn't compare to the first two, right? So all right, so this is Bill and Ted's Face the Music. It's the third one, and it's not bad, but it's not a great film. But if you have the other two, put in put this one in with it. All right, so that's the reason why I purchased that one. Next up is one of my favorite uh, filmmakers, and that's the Coen brothers. And here's Inside Llewyn Davis, a film that I have not seen yet. So this is only a Blu-ray, and I don't have the DVD of it this yet. So this will be one of my orphan DVD Blu-rays that wasn't an upgrade from a DVD first. I actually got the Blu-ray before I get the DVD, if I find the DVD anyway. So this is done by Joel and Ethan Cohen, and it's basically about like a blues or a singer-songwriter. From legendary directors Joel and Ethan Cohen, Inside Llewyn Davis follows a week in the life of a brilliant but troubled folk singer struggling to make it as a musician in the 1960s in New York. All right, so that doesn't sound like a huge, great film, but when the Coen brothers have a script and they do it right, some of the greatest films ever. All right, like Fargo, and my favorite is The Big Lebowski. But most of their films are entertaining in some way, and some of them are just up there in the upper echelon of greatest films of all time. Right? I'll see how Inside Llewyn Davis is. Llewyn Davis is when I watch it. All right. And now the next film I got was a Boyle film, and I have it on DVD. All right, so I'll upgrade it to Blu-ray, and I'll combine the two again. All right, so this basically um, stars, what's her name? Rosario Dawson. Is that her? Yeah, Rosario Dawson, who I first came in contact with in the second Clerks film. The Kevin Smith Clerks 2. Uh, she was like the girlfriend of Dante in the second, and she has a presence like Elizabeth Taylor has a presence on film, and even in a comedy like Clerks, I mean, she stands out. And then I decided I was going to watch all the. I think it's on Netflix, isn't it? All the Netflix Marvel um, TV shows, right? Like Daredevil and um, Power Man, those ones. And then, because my favorite comic book growing up was Iron Fist, and then they did Iron Fist on Netflix, and I watched that. And through those different Marvel Cinematic Universe TV shows that were on Netflix, Rosario Dawson played a nurse in most of them, especially in Daredevil. Right? Daredevil was a pretty damn good TV show, um, and since Iron Fist wasn't enjoyed much by many people that watched it on Netflix, but I quite enjoyed it because it was my favorite comic book, growing up. So anyway, so this is Trance, and this stars Rosario Dawson as a hypnotist and there's a robbery, like a robbery to get a painting at an auction house, and it's full of intrigue and twists and turns. And Boyle is a very good filmmaker, all right. And I have not seen this, but that's what I'm getting from this film is, Boyle did a bunch of great films, so Train Spotting and others, right? So this should be a pretty good film, and I'm going to watch it soon again. So that's Trance. I'll combine the Blu-ray and the DVD. All right. So those are the films I got from the pawn shop, and now let's get it. The two films that I got from a private sale, and this person had a nice box set of Pulp Fiction. Speaking of Pulp Fiction, this is my favorite Tarantino film, and probably my favorite film from the '90s. All right. And it's a Blu-ray DVD combo. And what do you call these? Digipacks? I think you call them digipacks, right? And it's in a nice box. It's in a nice box. It's basically brand new, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But you see these things here, it makes it look like, there's scrapes and scuffs on it when it's basically, there's nothing on it. It's basically brand new. I picked this up for $10. Now I had the Blu-ray combo. I bought Blu-ray DVD combo that I bought, a year or so ago for like $5 new. I can't remember whether it was at Walmart or somewhere else that I bought it, and it's still in its package. All right, um, because I haven't watched this film in more than a year, right? So, I mean, actually, that's not true because I have watched it on one of the streaming services between that time. Anyways, so I got I like Blu-ray DVD combos, and I found it for $5 or something. But then this guy has a nicer edition of it, so I decided to upgrade to this Blu-ray. It's just a much better package, and it looks nicer on the shelf. So I'll upgrade from this to this. All right. So um, and this, if you haven't seen it, greatest gangster film of all time. He plays with time. Tarantino plays with time in that. I mean, John Travolta is great in that film. Uma Thurman, Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, they're all amazing. Bruce Willis. There's so many iconic scenes in that film um, that I never get sick of watching it. Right. So I've watched it at least 30 or 40 times. All right. So I think the only film I probably watched more than that one is Blade Runner, which is another great film. Right. So anyway, so that's the one. Then she also had this film, a 2009 film, Zombieland, and I have it on DVD, but she had it in a really nice steelbook. All right. Steelbook Blu-ray. All right. So I'm going to add the disc from this into this and then just get rid of this and just replace it with this. All right. So this is a really nice um, Blu-ray. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Steelbook Blu-ray of Zombieland. Now this is fun. This one and Double Tap, the second film, are both really good. Directed by, who directed these? Can't remember who directed this. Who directed this? I don't think I collect them. That's why I don't remember really. Ruben Fletcher directed this. All right. So it's a nice steelbook. I do have this one and the second one, Double Tap, because I love zombie films, and it's fun to have a film that's also a comedy as well as a zombie film. I find as I age, the less I like horror for some reason. The less I like horror, the older I get. But I still enjoy horror, and my favorite type of horror is a zombie film, right? Um, so when they make it a little bit lighthearted, more comedic, uh, but it still has those horror elements, it's easier to digest, right? It's like Return of the Living Dead. Oh, I laughed my head out. I think it was Return of the Living Dead, the comedy one, not by Romero, but who was the director of that? I can't remember. Anyways, there's a scene in it where the zombie is climbing up the stairs because the guy went up into the attic, and he's knocking on the attic door, and he's going, "I know you're in there. I can smell your brains." I remember that scene for the rest of my life, and I watched that film when I was in my early 20s, late teens, or whatever, right? But Zombieland is another memorable comedy like the Evil Dead or whatever. Not as good as the Evil Dead, but has zombies in it and it's comedic. Those are my favorite type of horror films now that I'm getting older, and I'm just I don't know. I can't like Saw kind of killed horror for me. Saw and what was that other film? That one was really brutal, and I just see the '80s slasher films, which are probably my favorite type of horror films. Um, there was a disconnect with those. You can actually watch them and know that even though they're not comedies, you don't take them seriously as something that could occur in real life. You know what I mean? So, like, Jason isn't going to be running around with a knife down in Manhattan killing people, right? And, you shoot him and he doesn't die, and he just doesn't die no matter. So, there's a supernatural element to a lot of the slasher films um, that um, kind of disconnects you, say, that it's kind of not real. So it scares you, but there's like scare scenes that somebody jumps around the corner and you go whoa, like scream the same thing, right? But you don't really imagine that these things could happen in real life, right? Now, saying that something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can see that as happening in real life, or The Hills Have Eyes, or like something that happens like in Deliverance, right? You can see something like that happening, right? Um, those films I'm not as I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a great film, but I prefer to watch Halloween. I prefer to watch Friday the 13th or any of the Freddy Krueger films over the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Because it's just a little bit too real, and that one kind of turned my stomach in that most of it seemed to be like I haven't watched it in years, but it's a very dark movie, and a lot of the scenes happen at night, and you don't see much. And there's a guy in a wheelchair, and there's other people, and they're running away from Leatherface, and all you hear is the chainsaw and the people screaming, and you don't really see much on film. It's so dark, and it's almost like watching a dead screen, right? Just with sound or whatever, right? And so you have to use your imagination to know what's going on. All right. Then you'll see a glimpse. Oh, there's inside the cabin, and there he's made a bed out of human bones, and you're going, oh man. And then you hear the screaming and everything else, and so you kind of get the idea of what's going on, but they don't really show you the brutality as much as you hear it, and then you use your imagination, right? So that kind of turned my stomach a bit. Not what was it? Hostel. Hostel was the other film. So Hostel and the Saw films, but especially Hostel, where those teens go backpacking across Europe, and then they end up coming into being kidnapped and experimented on or whatever for these these clients of this group that go and find people for people to do terrible shit to for money, right? So that film kind of turned me off on horror films of the 2000s, or the was it late 90s, early 2000s, that that time period, mid 2000s, um, where I was just getting too realistic. I could see the surgeon who failed as a surgeon, but always wanted to do surgery on human body, and so then they provide him with a teenager that was backpacking across Europe, Eastern Europe or whatever, and then so you see that person on the table and getting cut open and having surgery done on them, pulling out. Anyways, you can see how that could occur because when if you're an American or if you're a Canadian, you're young and you don't have a lot of money and you're staying in hostels or whatever and you're traveling across Europe by backpack, nobody knows where you are. The communication isn't as good as it is now or whatever, right? But even so, you go over to Europe unless you do something with your cell phone, right? Your cell phone's no good anymore, right? Anyways, unless you put on roaming or you get a burner phone when you're over there or whatever, right? So you're out of communication. Nobody knows exactly where you are because you're young and you're traveling by foot. All right, you're not staying at a hotel in a tourist area, right? So you're open to some shit happening to you and nobody finding out about it, right? Because you don't live there natively. So if some guy ends up killing you and chopping up your body and getting rid of you, you know, what is a person back in Canada supposed to do if this happens in Romania or something, or in Germany or something, right? Um, it basically nothing happens half the time, right? So you're setting yourself up to, as a target that way, and then that was exploited in Hostel to a point where it's very realistic, right? And I'm going, I don't really want to watch something that's scary but also realistic because it just turns my stomach, right? So, and that's not the reason why I'm watching a film, is to have somebody turn my stomach, right? Or get me, feeling yucky or whatever, right? Yucky, isn't that a proper term, right? Uh, so I kind of, once the Saw films and those Cabin Fever and that kind of film where they went away from the slasher style of film where it's a scare tactic or whatever, but you could disconnect knowing that this probably isn't something that would be real or whatever, right? To the more realistic ones where somebody kidnaps you, puts you in a room, and is punishing you because you're a bad person or something. Then you got to, like lose your hand in order to get through this maze or whatever. Or somebody kidnaps you so a failed surgeon can do surgery on you. And anyways, it's pretty some really gross shit. So it kind of turned me off as I got older watching that stuff, right? Um, so I stopped watching it. And but something like Zombieland is quite enjoyable to watch because you still have the horror elements to it, but it's also, like Shaun of the Dead, that kind of film is enjoyable even though it has horror elements in it. It's not too serious, and you don't have to, you know deal with reality in film because you're like, it's not the reason why you're watching film. You're watching film to, kind of escape from the everyday life of yours, and not so that you can see people being brutalized and you can imagine it happening for real, right? Anyway, so that's Zombieland. All right, so that's the second one. That's the Zombieland Steelbook I got for like $5. All right, so, and now last are the four albums that I got from a private sale. Okay, so um, the first being was one of Tom Waits' greatest records. Came out in 1985, and that's Rain Dogs. Um, so this one in Swordfish Trombones. Probably, I think this one is my favorite. That's the reason why I got it. All right. Um, it's a Canadian pressing. It's a Island 1065, and it seems to be worth a good amount of money, and it's in perfect shape. Now, the main reason why I collect LPs is I do have a turntable or a record player that I can play these on, but I have this on CD, so I'll listen to it on CD. In fact, I've transferred it from CD onto a flash drive, and I listen to it on a flash drive. But every once in a while, I'll get nostalgic. I'll come down here and I'll play some records just to play some records. And this is one of the records I will play. And if you haven't heard Tom Waits before, you're missing out, buddy. You're missing out, people. Um, One of the greats. And his early stuff, if you listen to his early stuff and then listen to his '80s stuff, all right, there's a difference because he decides that he's going to sing with his throat rather than with his voice. So a lot of people are some people are turned off by that, where he's talking like he's smoked for a century and he's talking with his throat rather, singing with his throat rather than his voice or whatever. Because his voice actually isn't bad when he actually sings with his voice. If you listen to his early stuff, right? But then he kind of, it was kind of like, remember Louis Armstrong? Oh, he has that. Um, he intentionally sings with more of his throat than with his voice. So does Tom Waits, and it makes this cracking, guttural kind of voice that's in a way put offish, but in another way it's kind of attractive because you don't really hear that in music much, right? I mean, you got Bob Dylan's scratchy, crappy voice, Neil Young's more higher pitched, irritating voice, but everybody still listens to them, even though their singing isn't all that great because their songwriting is so great and what they sing about in the music is so good, right? So Tom Waits is the same way. He's mostly, if I was to categorize him, which you can't really do, but he uses a lot of instruments in his music, and it's mostly jazzy, right? It's kind of a jazzy with a throaty type of voice, and his lyrics are quite uh, interesting to listen to. They're not like your typical love song or whatever. You know what I mean? He speaks about a lot of different things, right? So it's intellectual in a way, a gruffy kind of scratchy voice to some really beautiful jazz instrumentation. So if you haven't come across, Tom Waits, pick him up, give him a try, see what you think. And Rain Dog, maybe Swordfish Trombones, and some others um, are good. His '80s stuff is very good. At least it's my favorite. But my music is I grew up with is in the '80s because I came to music late, right? So came to music when I was like 16 or 17. I didn't really listen to a lot of music when I was a child. I would listen to other people's music, but I wouldn't be listening to my music until the '80s, right? So anyway, so that's the first album. All right, it's a Canadian pressing, and it's not bad. It seems to be worth it. I picked it up for like less than $10. Um, but anyways, uh, the pricing of some LPs is just in my opinion, is ridiculous. But some people will. They'll spend like $100 on an LP to get a first pressing of an LP. Sometimes even thousands of dollars. If you buy a record that costs you $1,000, will you play it? Do you play it? I don't know. I don't know. Do you want to accidentally scratch it or do something with it that'll make it lose its worth? Or do you keep it in a plastic and as a keepsake and don't touch it at all? Because if you put a scratch on it, it's going to drop the price like significantly. If you damage it in some way, it's going to be worth a lot less money, and you paid $1,000 for it. Are you actually going to play it? I don't know. So some people will buy, first pressings just for the prestige of having a first pressing. Now, a lot of times the first pressing is the best sounding of all of it, but if that first pressing was in 1970 or 1966 or 1975, and it's been owned by five people before you bought it, and they've all played it, how good of a condition is it in? Um, I don't know. If they really took care of the records, maybe it's still in good condition. Anyway, so the second one I picked up was Bach, the Goldberg Variations by Glenn Gould. All right. So this um, is the 1982 redo by Gould. All right. So he's a Canadian guy. He decided, like just a year before he died, he did a reworking of it. And so you have this version of the Goldberg Variations, and then you have, when was it? 1956 version of it. Now the 1956 version of it is quite quick because Glenn Gould, not known by anybody, but he decided to do his first recording was this, the Goldberg Variations of Bach, right, on piano, because he's a piano player, right, and he blew everybody away with those renditions he did back in '56, and it put his name internationally everywhere. And this did something that no other album that I can think of has done, and it almost became a mainstream album. And it's unheard of for a mainstream album of classical music to become mainstream. It was like when Miles Davis, Miles Davis recordings are some of the best recordings in jazz, right? But when you're talking about the greatest albums of all time, usually you'll separate jazz from other, and there'll be rock or pop records, but you know um, Miles Davis is so good that he's included, where other players who are really good jazz players aren't really included when it comes to these lists of the greatest albums of all time. Unless you say the greatest jazz albums of all time, you won't see somebody like Wynton Marsalis, or maybe you'll see a Coltrane every once in a while, but you won't see, like, you'll need a jazz list in order to get all the great jazz players. But when you look at the greatest albums just in general, you'll see Miles Davis in a lot of them, and that doesn't happen usually in jazz. When you look at the greatest Canadian albums of all time, you don't see classical music in these greatest albums, all right? But you do see this one, all right? And especially the early one from 1956. But this one I like better. The reason why is because maybe I'm old. I don't know, maybe because I'm older. But the early one was more frenetic. Like he was, like quicker paced. He was playing them, but he was playing at a quicker pace, and he was like, you got that energy of youth, right? And he was putting it into his piano, and it was brilliant. It was beautiful. But this one is like, I don't know how much longer, maybe 15 minutes longer than that recording back in 1956. Yet it's the exact same music, right? So he slowed it down a bit. He became more introspective. He played it with more nuance, I guess you could say, and um, I enjoy it more. So I found this one in that private sale. I think he was selling it for like $5. So, and this is the 82 version of it, not the 56 version of it. All right. So if you don't really listen to classical music, and most people are either super enthusiastic classical music listeners, or they ignore the whole genre of music, saying, "Oh, that's I want to listen to contemporary music. I want to listen to, music from my era. I don't want to go to music that was written like 500 years ago or whatever." Right. Um, so they won't listen to classical music. But those that do um, get right into it usually, right? So you either it's not a like a it's like an either or situation. But this kind of crossed over, and people that don't really listen to Canadians who don't really listen to classical music, you ask them, and a lot of them have listened to this one. All right, so this is how beautiful and great this album is. If you have not listened to this album, I highly suggest you do. All right, so it's the Goldberg Variations of Bach, interpreted by Glenn Gould. All right, so next up are two of Bruce Springsteen's early albums. All right, and I got these both for under $10. All right, they're both Canadian pressings. I don't know if they're first pressings, but um, this is his second album, and this is his third album, and this was before he ended up becoming the huge name that he became in rock and roll and in rock music. Right? He put out, what was it? Greetings from Ashbury, New Jersey. Greetings from Ashbury Park, New Jersey. All right, so that was his first album. Then he put out this album, and then he put out this album. Now those first two albums are considered good, but this one is considered great. And then the next one after this one, Born to Run, is considered his best. Now, me listening to 80s music, um, when I started listening to music more seriously was in the 80s, right? My album that I know Bruce Springsteen most of is Born in the USA. And that was like a huge album in the 80s. These ones not as much. All right. So Born to Run basically put Springsteen on the map. So his third album. And then he had two more albums that were good as well. But then Born in the USA hit, and man, that just exploded. That album just made him an iconic figure up there with Prince and other people of the 80s. That anyway. So, but he started in the 70s, and so many of the great artists in the 80s all started in the 70s. So you got to consider them 70s artists more than 80s artists. But anyway, so these are his two albums. All right, and both are Canadian pressings. All right, both put out by Columbia. All right, and between the two, I kind of like this one more than this one, even though this one is more respected than this one is. Um, and there was the E Street Band, which played on both of these albums. All right, and if you like the sax, which I like the sax, it's my favorite type of non-vocal jazz music is the sax. And Clarence, what's his name? Clarence Clemens plays the sax on much of Bruce Springsteen's albums that the E Street Band play on, and he's an amazing sax player. At least I think so. Um, so this one has Badlands in it, The Promised Land, Streets of Fire, Darkness at the Edge of Town, obviously, right? And this one has um, the E Street Shuffle, Kitty's Back, Rosalita. That's probably the most famous song from this album. All right, New York City Serenade. So some of the great Springsteen songs. But like I said, for me, it was Born in the USA, and probably for everybody else, it was Born to Run that really made Bruce Springsteen. So if you want to listen to Springsteen, you've been in a cave for the last 50 years or whatever, 40 years, um, then I would suggest you listen to Born to Run, and then maybe Born in the USA, and then go splattering around the rest of his catalog, right? All right, so those are the four used, all right, LPs that I got. I got this for, what did I get this for? Like, like under $30 for these 4 albums. All right, so not too bad. And all used, right? So usually I buy a lot of LPs new because my main purpose of buying LPs is use them as wall art. They're great for using them as wall art. And if you can convince your wife or your husband that you can display these as artwork in more like almost all the artwork that I display these in artwork is in the hallway going upstairs. In the stairwell going upstairs. All along the walls there are a lot of my albums that I like, Canadian albums and CDs also that I've attached to the wall. In here I have a bunch of CDs up here. I don't want to move the camera because it's a front-facing camera. I can't see my image right now, so I don't want to pick the camera up. Anyway, so and I'll have LPs on the wall as well. So I like using them as wall art. Um, and I will listen to them, especially the LPs that are really difficult to find on CD. I will listen to those on my record player, and those are 4 in my collection now. Now I'll be doing another like episode 2 of my vinyl collection or my record collection, and since I did these ones, I won't go through them again for that. I still have a bunch of LPs that I haven't shown you yet. So anyway, so those are 4, right? 4 LPs and a bunch of films and 2 new from Walmart. Uh, Including Eddie Murphy's 14 Top Gun and Eddie Murphy's 14 movie collection. What do you think of this? Do you still Would you still watch a DVD on your large screen television that maybe is set up for 4K? Would you do it? It's $10 worth 14 Eddie Murphy films. Anyways, let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching. Thank you for staying to the whole video, and leave a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you choose. I would appreciate it. And I'll see you in my next video. All right. And you have a very good day, and I will talk to you later. Bye for now.